Morning everyone, thanks for joining us. Today I'm announcing my intention to stand down as Chief Executive of Cricket Australia and in advising David and the board of this decision I've provided 12 months notice. It's my intention to give the board the opportunity to run a thorough process to identify my successor and for me to provide support to the new CEO with the smoothest possible handover. After nearly 20 years at Cricket Australia and 17 years as Chief Executive, the time's right for me and my family, and I think the time is also right for cricket. In the last 12 months we've laid some key foundation stones for the game with the launch of a new strategy, a new collective agreement with the Australian Cricketers Association that allows certainty for male and female cricketers, and just recently the announcement of a new television rights deal that will see expanded coverage of the game, new cutting-edge digital technology for fans, and obviously significant additional revenues coming into the game. Also, the ICC is not far away from announcing a new FTP for cricket. It's something that I've been involved in, and pleasingly we'll see significant additional structure and context for the international game. With these foundations in place, I feel that it's a good time for me to hand over the reins to a new Chief Executive. My successor will have a strong and stable platform from which to lead our sport and to deliver on our bold aspirations for cricket to be Australia's favourite sport and a sport for all Australians. My overwhelming feeling today is a sense of gratitude. I feel fortunate to have been given the opportunity to do this job, and I've worked closely with 6 chairmen, and I'd like to thank David and each of his 5 predecessors for having the confidence in me and for their friendship, support and counsel along the way. By far the most inspiring thing about the job that I do is the people that I work with. I love and admire their passion for the game and their dedication to serve the cricket community. And in addition to those at CA, that includes people within our states and territories, and of course the thousands of volunteers across Australia who do a wonderful job for cricket. Any credit to me has only ever been due to the great people around me. And finally, thanks to my family. None of our 3 kids were born when I started work at Cricket Australia, so in a sense that's all they know. But it's my wife Heidi who is the one that really deserves the credit. She's made her own personal sacrifices for my career and our own family, and I can't thank her enough for her unwavering encouragement, support and understanding. At the end of my term as CEO, there'll be plenty of time to reflect, but before then my focus is on continuing to drive the game forward here in Australia and through my role on the ICC Chief Executives Committee. Just as it has been for the last 20 years, it will be a privilege and an honour to continue to serve the game I love over the remaining months of my tenure. I'll now hand over to David for some comments before we take questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, James, and good morning, everyone. I'd start by noting that James made his first-class debut here for Victoria at Junction Oval in 1991. So, on behalf of the board and management of Cricket Australia, I'd firstly like to begin by thanking James for his wonderful service to the game. When James first became CEO in 2001, he was actually younger than the then Australian captain, Steve Waugh. James has done an incredible job and has always carried himself with integrity, humility and dignity, apart from knowing the game of cricket inside out. He is without doubt the best sporting administrator in Australia and the best in world cricket. James has been instrumental in driving change around the game to make it even stronger for future generations. When he leaves the game, he can most certainly say it's much stronger for him having been here. During his period of leadership, James has retained a strong passion for junior cricket to encourage boys and girls into the game to be able to get to understand and enjoy the game, and by so doing provide the fundamental basis for a sustainable growth in our game of cricket. To that end, cricket has experienced a 228% increase in participation, including a near tenfold increase in female participation since 2001. Aggregate attendances have grown by 137%, whilst revenue has grown nearly tenfold from $50 million a year in 2001 to around $500 million per year today. James was heavily involved in the introduction of the highly successful Big Bash League and Women's Big Bash League, and of course has pioneered and led the way with day-night Test cricket, which has seen record crowds at the venues where day-night cricket has been held. In the most recent MOU, he was a driver in providing women the opportunity to pursue a fully professional career in cricket with substantial increase in pay, which was a landmark achievement in gender equity in sport in Australia. During his tenure, our national squads have secured 3 men's and 2 women's World Cups, as well as 3 women's World T20 titles. James has also played a lead role in recent years to improve the Futures Tour program. In fact, that's an understatement. James has driven it. Following a long process, the ICC and other member countries have approved initiatives to be introduced in 2019 that will see greater structure and context for Test and ODI formats of the game. In addition to an extraordinary list of achievements at Cricket Australia, which I know I'm embarrassing James by reading out, James has also coached his 3 children and previously at Victorian Premier Club level. He is an honorary member of the Melbourne University Cricket Club and the Marylebone Cricket Club. James's passion and dedication to our great game is indisputable. The game has never been in a stronger position, and now the board will embark on a process to fill some very big shoes. Search firm Egon Zehnder, through lead Fiona McGeeckie, has been appointed to conduct a full and extensive search. Through this search, the board is committed to finding the best person for what is a very big job. James has given us a generous 12 months notice period, and we expect to find a candidate in this time and expect also to have a smooth and orderly handover. In the meantime, James will continue in his position, and he has the full support and confidence of the board to continue to serve in the best interests of the game. Thank you, and now we'll take questions.
James, just how big a toll did the ball tampering saga take on you, and what sort of impact did it have on your decision?
Certainly it was a big issue at the time, but when you work in an issues-rich environment like we do as an executive, chief executive of a major sport, these things come from time to time. It hasn't been it hasn't had a bearing on my decision. I guess David and I have actually been talking about this for 2 years to say when is sort of understanding, I guess, where I am personally, but also when's the best time for the game, as I said before, with some really key building planks in place with the MOU, the strategy, the media rights deal now done. It just feels like a good time for me to hand over the reins in an orderly fashion to my successor.
Yep. James, what was the main thinking behind the 12-month notice period? Is it purely to give them time to find a good successor, or is it also to see the transition of this difficult period of Australian cricket through?
Look, my view has always been that I'd like to go out on my terms, but at the same time, I want to go out in such a way that allows the game to make a smooth transition. And I think that having been in the role for 17 years, there are things that I've come to know along the way that it's only appropriate for me to work closely with my successor, but at the same time I'll be looking to get out of their way as quickly as possible as well.
James, over 18 years you've had numerous crises, bridges to cross, issues to encounter. Why now and not at previous times or at previous achievements in your career?
Look, as I said, Dan, in my opening comments, when you we work our business, and you know this, our business works on a sort of 4, 5, 6 year cycle, and it just so happens that right now, putting aside the fact that I've been in the role for 17 years, it just so happens now we've adopted a new strategy. We have a collective agreement with our players that is in place. We've just done a new media rights deal that puts us in a really strong position about certainty of revenue for this next cycle, as well as the ICC piece. It just feels that with all of those things done, it's a really good time for me to step aside, but it's also a really good time for a new chief executive to come in and have a good run at it.
And just on the structural change that occurred a little while ago with Kevin Roberts becoming the COO, you've never had a COO before. Are these two things related at all?
No, well, not related. I mean, I guess from my perspective, and internally people would know and understand that for over the last 12 months or so at least, Kevin's had a very broad role and has been effectively my deputy and CEO. So from that perspective, I think it's it's really turning what was a convoluted title into a COO, and allows sort of that clarity, I guess, about his role, which encompasses various functions of the organisation on an operational level.
James, we've seen in quite a number of interviews recently that you said you really wanted to stay on in the role. Can we maybe draw some dots together, I guess, there, and see that maybe there's been some pressure or a decision from higher up trying to influence you? I mean, it just seems quite an abrupt change.
Well, maybe, but I can also say that it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it would be silly of me to say anything else other than I wanted to continue in the role. So I'm not. I'm obviously it's something I was thinking about, but I'm not going to air my own personal thoughts over the course of the last couple of years when I'm thinking about what the right time to go is. And we've had some big things to deal with over the course of the last 12 months. Obviously there's Cape Town, but there's also some key planks that are now in place and allow me to step aside and for a new chief executive to come in and have a really strong platform from which to operate and take the game forward.
But maybe I could just add to that as well to say that, as James said, he's been talking to me about this for at least 2 years now, since almost the whole time I've been chairman. We've been talking about what the best time is, and we decided that we really needed James to lead us through the media rights negotiation process, which he has done, and of course it's been, and we're very thankful for that, and it's been an outstanding success.
James, over your 17 or so years at the helm, I mean, what do you say is the highlights in your time there, and maybe things that on the other side, if you had your time again, you'd do otherwise?
It's a bit embarrassing hearing David talk about those things earlier on, and I sort of reiterate my comments before. I'm very fortunate to have been the chief executive, but I really truly believe in and are inspired by, and I'm inspired by the people around me. So it's whatever's been achieved and the way the game's grown is absolutely a team effort. The one thing that I would say though about that, Andrew, is my underlying belief about the most important thing we do as sports administrators, and that is inspire the next generation to love cricket. Boys and girls, it's all about that. and whilst that doesn't necessarily get the publicity that it deserves, the facts of the matter are that if kids today, the primary school kids today, boys and girls, are not getting bats and balls in their hands, not seeing and understanding the opportunity that is there from playing cricket, then the game doesn't have a future. And that has been my sort of the underlying driver for me in this role. All the way through, it's about the kids, and it's about making sure that the game has a sustainable future through the next generation of boys and girls that come through. Well, the Big Bash, absolutely. In a specific sense, the Big Bash is part and parcel with that. As we know, it's something that's come into play to bring new people to the game. It's a great success story for Australian cricket, but it's one piece of the jigsaw that also, I guess, includes the opportunity and the access to the game that boys and girls around the country need, and the support that states and territories play in providing that is incredibly important.
Question for David. In the last couple of months, we've had Steve Smith and David Warner lose their leadership positions, at least Steve Smith temporarily. Kevin Roberts to CEO, Ian Roy resigning, and now this. Was there any indication from the board or any push from the board to actually say to James, we need you to continue on for a little bit to oversee this quite unbelievable transition within Cricket Australia?
Look, as a matter of fact, when James and I were getting clearer about timing, we thought about the end of the successful men's and women's Ashes summer as a good juncture, but then we talked more about it and said we really need to complete the media rights process, which I mentioned a minute ago. There is no good time. There is always something going on in cricket. As James said, it's an issues-rich environment, and so we decided then that after media rights were completed that James would announce at that point.
David, without sort of prejudging the recruitment process, does the board have a preference for whether it's a person within Australia or a person within cricket, or are you open to all candidates?
Yeah, Andrew, I don't want to prejudge. The first thing I'd like to say is and I've seen a lot of jobs in my time. This is an incredibly complex job. It has many dimensions. So what we must do is find the best person for the role. And in order to do that, we must build the most competitive field in the process to select from that we can. So while I don't want to put any constraints around it, cricket, it is a Cricket Australia role, so we're probably going to have a little bit of bias towards an Australian. And it is a role in cricket, so we're probably going to have a bias towards someone of cricket. But again, I don't want to put constraints around that because there might be people come through. And I'm sure there will be very good candidates coming through from within cricket and from outside cricket. So I don't really want to put limitations around it, but naturally I'm sure we will have those biases.
David, just thinking, a lot of punters will see this and think this is probably just more fallout from the ball tampering scandal. Can you give us an idea, is that too simple a way to sum it up, or has it impacted what's happened here?
It hasn't impacted it at all. Just to reiterate again, we have been talking about this for a couple of years. It was completely James's decision. He has been and remains an outstanding chief executive, and he has made the decision to move at this time for the reasons we've spoken about. So clearly the ball tampering issue has created upheaval. We've got the review process going on. I think it's also helped us understand better the extraordinary passion which Australians have for cricket and the importance of us as administrators to make sure we're tapping back in to that passion and respecting that passion. And indeed our strategy, a new strategy we've recently released, tilts very strongly back towards fans, grassroots and participants.
David, it's been reported that you've been endorsed by the states to continue on as chairman. Can you shed some light on your plans and how long you intend to stay on?
So the board has asked me to do another term. and I've agreed to do that. I think at times like this, continuity is important. So we have transition to a new CEO. We have leadership changes in the Australian men's setup. We have a massive summer coming up, which we're all very excited about. We have World Cup and Ashes next year. We've got a T20 2020 in 2020. We've got new financial models. We've got new broadcasters. So on the basis of all of those things going on, with James transitioning out, I've agreed to do another term.